What is the Golden Dome for the people who are not following
Well,
the details?
the Golden Dome is, in my view, it's a political construct. It really it has no merit technically. We'll talk about that shortly. But what it does do is it allows Trump to play to his base. That is to say, he's defending America, United States from all these threats, from nuclear threats from all over the world, both small and large. I mean, some of these threats are large now, like China and of course Russia. Some of these threats are much smaller, like North Korea, uh, which incidentally is is unlikely to be effectively negated with any of the defense systems that the United States currently has or can predictably have in the future. So it's a small threat in terms of numbers of missiles, but it's not it's not something that's meaningless in terms of its threat to the United States. But the fact of the matter is that the technology is not really there for these kinds of missile defenses. There are two kinds of defenses that Trump is now talking about. First, he's talking about beefing up the current missile defense systems that the United States has. These would be the Navy Aegis-based Standard Missile 3 interceptors that are at sea now. It's hard to know. It's the Pentagon's been very um, uh, obfuscating with regard to the number of standard missile threes, SM3s. There are two kinds of SM3s. There's the Block 1A and Block 2A. The 1A has a burnout speed of about 3 kilometers per second, which is really not usable for even shorter range missiles. It's really a very minimalist system. The Block 2A has a burnout speed that's higher, about 4.5 kilometers per second, which is enough to look somewhat like a capability, but really isn't a capability. And then there's the ground-based missile defense system, which is about some 40 odd, 44 is the current number, interceptors, which look like ICBMs.
Well, it seems that yeah, because nuclear weapons are a key deterrent. It's defined often as a defensive weapon. The initial ABM treaty, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, had the logic that it was dangerous because it could convert nuclear weapons from a defensive into an offensive weapon, with the logic that the United States could never intercept the vast amount of Soviet missiles, but which would survive a first strike and thus be used in a retaliatory strike on the United States. But with a powerful missile defense, the idea was it could enable a first strike, that is, just a surprise
Yes,
attack.
that's in principle, but
Yeah.
it also the the ABM Treaty of 1972 in its prologue um, uh, basically points out that in very simple language, I might say it's an interesting treaty to actually read the original language to. In the preamble to the treaty, it basically says, if you have missile defenses, it's going to be nearly impossible because the potential capabilities of these missile defenses will not be easily ignored by by leadership of the different countries. So as long as you have these missile defenses, you're going to have a powerful incentive to expand your offensive nuclear forces to overcome them. That's the obvious and simple way to overcome a defensive system is just build more a defensive system, build more offensive systems. And so the preamble to the ABM Treaty actually points out that the ABM Treaty is the critical treaty in order to have arms limitations. So the Strategic Arms Limitations Treaty was, of course, was negotiated around that time, the first treaties. So, so that's the problem. The problem is that you get kind of the worst of both worlds with these missile defenses, because a reasonable question for people to ask, given at least my arguments, which is that they don't work, is so why are you concerned about them? If you're not, what's to be concerned about if they don't work? Well, the problem is that neither no adversary can be sure that the capabilities of an existing defense isn't greater than they thought or couldn't change with some technical innovation and change in a time that is short relative to your ability to modify your offensive forces. So that's the underlying concern that political leaders, and of course, there's the appearance of having capability, which results in or could result in political leverage that political leaders are also concerned about. Because if you have an adversary with political leverage, that's a big concern in an eyeball to eyeball confrontation. So another reason you would not want the appearance of any capability of a missile defense, even if it's not very good, to be to be a factor in any political confrontation. And then, of course, you have the problem that concerns Putin most, and I think Putin is very concerned about this. If you look at his statements very carefully, it is extremely clear that he is very well informed about the limitations of American missile defenses. So he is not afraid that American missile defenses have any capability, but he is afraid of American missile defenses because he is worried that American leaders are so ill-informed that at some time he might face an American president who actually thinks that these American missile defenses have some capability. And if the person is so ill-informed that they think these systems have some capability, they may do something in a crisis that could force the Russians to respond. Because, for example, if the United States attacked Russia with some misunderstanding that they could actually deal with a Russian counterattack, the escalation, the outcome would, in terms of global escalation to destruction of civilization, would occur, independent, just because of the complete lack of understanding by the American political decision maker. And that is absolutely clearly one of Putin's great concerns. And frankly, I tend to share his concern because I've dealt enough with American political leadership and incidentally, American military leadership to know how totally ignorant and ill-informed some high-level decision makers, both military and civilian, can be, and that really ill-informed characteristic, that thread through American political decision making, is a concern.